All right, 10.5 is a one single sheet of paper, right? And it talks about abuses of statistics. So we're going to run through these real quickly. We do need to talk about them. Abuses of statistics. There are two different basic kinds of abuses of statistics. One has to do with the sampling process. And there are some different issues that can happen when you're actually collecting data that can manipulate the kind of information you collect. So perhaps it's who you ask. Did you ask everybody at OBU or did you ask everybody at OU? It's going to make a difference. Did you ask all women? Did you ask all men? It's going to make a difference. Did you ask 5-year-olds or did you ask 15-year-olds? It's going to make a difference. How many people were asked? All right, well, do I ask 15 of you guys and then say that that applies to everybody on campus? Probably not a good idea, right? Because there's only 15 of you. Not to mention that with the exception of Brendan, you're mostly female, right? Everybody else is female. It's going to slight things. And you're all education majors, right? So there's going to be something there that's not going to be sort of transferable. How many people responded? That's a really good question. So when people send out surveys, how many of you have gotten some kind of survey you didn't answer before? Right? It makes a difference. And the people who did respond, why? Did they respond because they were just being nice and they responded, or did they respond because they really cared strongly about the information? So that might slight things too, right? Did you just so happen to get all the responses from the people that hate the cafeteria or whatever? I mean, this matters, right? Was the sample random? Okay, did you just stand outside and ask every person that came by Riley Chapel? That would be fairly random, right? Or did you selectively pick people? Like I picked this particular group of students, this class, not so random anymore. How was the question worded? So depending on how you word something will depend on what kinds of answers you get. Did you word it in a way that nobody knows what you're talking about? You put too many negatives in a word and nobody knows if they're supposed to answer yes or no. Did you sometime last night maybe think about not doing your homework? I don't even know what you asked. I mean, you said something about homework in there, but am I supposed to answer yes or no? And like a question like that too. So if one of your professors says, how many hours did you study? You have to think, ooh, if I say too low of a number, will that look bad? Do I say too high of a number, will it look bad? So you start wondering, how much can I fudge the truth before it sounds wrong? Right?
Or the person on the campus who did the Women's Suffrage Act and all women, like most of the women voted against it. And he was like, this is your right to vote. And they're like, it said suffrage.
Suffrage. There you go. Okay, so these are some of the issues with sampling, collecting data. There's also issues with graphically representing data, and people do this all the time. And what I really hope that you'll get out of looking at this section is the ability to look critically at the information that is presented to you primarily in the media, because this is where you see it happen the most. All right, so here's some issues. Issue number one, is there a title? Do you even know what the graph there is showing you is supposed to be for? It's a big deal. Are the axes labeled? Do you know that that bottom axis is in thousands of dollars, or is it in hundreds of dollars, or is it in dollars? Because it makes a difference, right? Do you know if that vertical axis is in numbers of people, thousands of people, millions of people, or percentage of people? It makes a difference. The source of the data. Did you collect the data at OBU? Did you collect the data at Harvard? It makes a difference. The key to a pictograph. So we did that one pictograph that had the heart, remember? Do you remember that one? Mm-hmm. And it mattered that we let the heart equal to 10 people, right? It's a labeling issue, kind of like labeling the axes. Uniform size of the symbols on a pictograph. I harped on this a lot when you guys were doing your the dot plots with the little X's. Do you remember that? And I said, really, you got to be careful. Those X's better not look like huge on one spot and small on the other, or you're giving the illusion of something that's not really there. So you've got that scaling issue. Scale, does it start with 0? If not, is a break shown? I graded one of you guys' homework problems like that, where some of you chose not to start at 0, and you showed a break in your graph. In particular, it was a break, most of you who were doing it was a break in the frequency of how large something was. Scale, are the numbers evenly spaced? We've harped on that too, right? Where like the last one I drew, which was that box and whisker plot, I said we've got them roughly, at least visually, spaced evenly across the bottom. It matters. The last thing is the 2D and 3D misleading effects. And in order to show you what I mean by that, I want you to take a look at your book. So grab your book if you've got it with you. Lean over to a neighbor if you don't. And I want you to take a look. 10.5, I'll tell you the page number. Which one is it that I wanted to use? Well, this one will work. Let's go page 615, 615. The first picture on the top has, and it's a picture of cereals. The first picture in the orange is Corn Crisp. It's a two-dimensional picture right next to Sugar Plops, whatever those are. It has cereals. And then the bottom picture underneath that shows a three-dimensionalized picture of it. Well, what they're trying to measure is the millions of boxes sold. Well, the Sugar Plops have about 2 million boxes sold, it looks like, and the Corn Crisp about 8 million boxes sold. Are you with me? But I don't know about you, but when I look at that first picture, it looks much more than 4 times as big because they've given it area. And the one below is even worse. They've given it volume that doesn't really exist. And this happens a lot if you look further down too on this picture with the pie graph. Right? Take a look at this pie graph. I've got recreation at 27%, private ownership at 23%, and lumber at 23%. Those are almost all right at 25%. But that recreation, because it is in the foreground of the picture, looks way bigger. So you can mislead people all you want with statistics. And you need to be really careful not to do that, right? And you need to be aware when it's being done to you. That's one of the biggies too. I just cringe when people do it on the media. So this particular section is highly interactive. So I would encourage you to do this with a friend, okay? Because the entire section of section 10.1, or section A and B, is simply looking at the information and saying, what are they trying to tell me in this that's not really happening? That's what you're looking for. You're looking for what in the world is misleading about this information for the most part. Okay? That's it for 10.5.